I'd like to call the meeting to order of June 18th, 2018. Mr. Calavita, may I have a roll call, please?
Present.
Here.
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 Here. Here. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Trentonian on January 9th, 2018, and May 1st, 2018. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on Comcast, Channel 19, Verizon Fios, Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. May we all rise for the flag salute, please. I'd like a resolution to, a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th, 2018 work session and the minutes of May 21st regular meeting. A motion, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. I'd like to welcome all of you to our meeting this evening. It's always really exciting to see so many people from our community come out to celebrate the accomplishments of our students and our staff. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Smith to introduce our first guests of honor.
Excellent. So tonight we are recognizing three different groups. The first one is our state championship unified track team. So I'm going to ask Mr. Becker to come up. And he will tell us about their
Applause.
oh, I'm sorry. That's
Not much. I learned from watching you.
Ouch.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'd like to start off by just thanking the board and Dr. Smith for all your support for athletics. It was a very successful year, but our one state championship team, which we're going to recognize tonight, and you know, all these kids put in a lot of work, a lot of time this spring, and it certainly paid off. So we'd like to recognize each one. But first, I'd like to also thank and introduce the coaches as well. So if I could have Coach Dodge come out. Coach Marino. You guys can come over here if you want. I did shower today.
Okay.
Coach Johnson. Coach Fossil. And Coach Oldfield. These coaches did one heck of a job this year working with these kids, and like I said, it paid off with the state championship. They won the Group 3, 2, and non-public B state championship. They went on to the Meet of Champions, where they placed third amongst all schools, no matter what the group, in the 4x100, and then won the 4x400 at the Meet of Champions. So again, congratulations, and thank you for all your hard work. At this time, we'd like to introduce each of our athletes, and we have a certificate for them. So first up is Elliot Brown.
Elliot.
Next, you want to go over there? Stand together.
That's it.
Stephen Hu. Robert Wilson. Joseph Genova. Delaney O'Connell. Natalie Boyle. Jeremy Borges. Dan Amon. Sam Fowler. Gavin Fowler. Logan Schaefer. Estelle Corrette. Couldn't make it. And Jenna Aziz. Our state championship this year. Congratulations, everybody.
Get in there with them and we can get a picture.
I don't want to break it.
Come on over here with the boys.
Yeah, pull it down.
Slide.
Trip, before we move on, remind me how old our unified team is.
They can go all the way up to age 21.
No, I mean how old our team.
This is our second year.
Second year, right? So it's pretty impressive that we've come together.
We were runner-up last year.
We have-
So our next team to celebrate is our DMR team that won the Penn Relays back in April. So a little story to go into the whole thing. Here's our wheel, by the way. I believe the last Mercer County team to win a wheel was Trenton in 1978.
Yes.
Zero is born.
it's-
You can do the math.
it's-
So I had never been to the Penn Relays, not growing up, and not as an AD. So Coach Oldfield, kept after me. You got to come down, got to come down. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go down. I want to see the unified team compete, and I would like to see the DMR team compete. So I get down there, and I go to get in, and they make, even with my badge saying I was the athletic director, they make me walk all the way around through Camden, all the way back across the bridge. And so I finally get in. And watching everything, it's great to see all those kids compete, and they have the colleges there as well. So got a nice little tour of the facility. Thank you. And so we're getting ready to start. We were there for a few hours, and so I was hanging with Coach Oldfield for a little bit, and he's talking. He's getting pumped up about it, and he's like, the two other schools. What was the two other schools? The Loudon Valley. And what was the school from St. Anthony's from New York? So he's like, these two teams are tough. He's like, we're going to have to run pretty much perfect in order to get it. And he's like, I don't know if we have it. He's like, I think we can do it, but he's like, I don't know. So he's a little nervous about it. So we go over to the straightaway, and he and I are sitting together, and we watch the college one go off. And Nova won, for all the Nova fans out there. So they're all celebrating, and the last couple teams come in. I forget what their times were. They were high 9s, 10s. Were there any 10s? A couple 10s. So great. They go off, and so our guys get to start. So if anybody who doesn't know what the DMR is, there's 4 legs to it. The first leg is 3 laps. So Teddy's running the first lap. You guys can come. Why don't you guys come on in? You can't hide out there.
That's it. Yeah.
So Teddy takes the first leg, which is 3 laps, and doing a great job. Coach Oldfield's yelling to him the whole time he's going by us, and he's in 3rd place, right behind St. Anthony's, and Loudoun Valley was out in front. So hands it off to our missing person, which is Amos Barnes. He had to work tonight, so he couldn't make it. So he does 1 lap. So he tears off. It was Teddy, personal record for you for those 3 laps? I think, didn't they all get personal? Yes. Yeah. So they all got their personal records. So Teddy hands it off to Amos. Amos sprints his 1 lap. Personal best for him. Hands it off to Tim, who takes off. Tim's got to do 2 laps now. Tim again, personal best. And the whole time, Coach Oldfield's, screaming at him, good pace, good pace. So the only concern was the handoff to his little brother. So hopefully it's a good handoff. We were worried about that. It would have been a tough day at home if that handoff was botched. So handoff goes perfect. Sean takes it, starts going. He's got 4 laps to run now. So 1 lap, 2 lap, 3 laps, 3rd place the whole time. So our last lap comes. And, again, Coach Oldfield yelling, screaming. He was pretty subdued up until the last leg, and we won't talk about that. But anyway, I believe we have a video of that last sort of lap. Oh, wow. I hope you can't hear Mr. Oldfield. Looks like this is the 3rd lap, right?
Aaron, coach us through it.
Same exact words you used.
Thinking top 5 teams medal, we have that locked.
You might be able to see us sitting. We're sitting right there. Actually, we're on the other side. So here's our last lap, and you can see how far out Loudoun Valley is. I think I asked Coach Oldfield, does he have a shot at catching him? He said, I don't think so. He's too far ahead. But we might have second. See, at some point around here, all of a sudden, you see Sean just shift into the next gear and take off.
It's a shame you can't actually see how fast he looks on, the right. I knew the outcome, but when I was watching this, I was like, when is he going to do it? When is he going to do it? Does he do it? Just amazing.
So great job up until about that point, and then the coach in me would say, hands in the air, like 10 feet to the finish line. Cost some time, could have, but that's all right. It was a great win. Everybody's happy. Coach Oldfield, I had to really tackle him, subdue him. It was definitely a memorable day. Something I've never seen it. These guys have basically spoiled it for me for the future. Because it's like I said, 40 years Mercer County team, won one of these. So hopefully I'll go back and we'll win again next year. I don't know, but maybe I'm the good luck charm. Maybe.
One of the coolest pictures, I don't know if you guys saw it, I'm sure you did in the paper, was not of Sean, but of everyone else when they knew he was about to win. That was amazing. They have this picture of the 3 of them watching to see what was going to happen. That was That was almost as exciting as us watching the race. It was hilarious
Yep.
to watch his teammates watching him just about to win.
Yeah, we were in shock. Coach Oldfield was definitely in shock, to the point where we, as soon as they won, we ran down and just blew right past security as they're yelling at us to get back. We got on the field. We didn't get in trouble, so we were okay. But it was definitely a memorable day, and congratulations to you guys, and thank you for an amazing year. They're fresh back from nationals. Somebody is a national champ in the mile, Mr. Sean Dolan. So right now we have something we'd like to give each of you. So we'll have Teddy come on up. Yeah, pull it up. The question was asked, where do we get the batons? I just found them. I don't know where they were.
Remember, after the race, apparently one of the officials has a grandchild that goes to Timberlake. So once you basically finish, they just towards you. You have to give a baton right back, goes in a basket. He just took it out of the basket, hit it, gave it to one of our kids and said, here you go. My grandson or daughter, I forget which one, goes to Timberlane, take it, hide it. So I'm like, oh gosh.
This is a public meeting, Coach Oldfield.
Barley.
There's our national champion right there. Very nice. Did you get to keep the crown?
4x8.
Excellent. Yeah, what did the 4x8 get?
They were
Sixth.
They were
Sixth.
awesome.
Our 4x8 got sixth. Wow. Next up, Tim Dolan. Good job. And our last leg here, Sean Dolan. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you
Awesome.
for, again,
Thank you,
providing
Mr.
us.
Becker.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations.
You know, you guys have made us nationally famous. I was in Maryland at a lacrosse tournament, and people were like, "You're from Hopewell Valley? You guys just won the Penn Relay." And I was like, "Yeah." So you guys have really put us on the map.
Anybody want their picture taken real quick?
With you? Thank you.
You.
I
Where are
said
you
that.
going?
I said that before.
Did we say something wrong?
All right, and next up is Dr. Ngweni.
David here?
Yep, he's coming up.
Who also has a rising track star.
I think most of you know, or hopefully know, that Dr. Ngweni runs a trip to Kenya and has really fostered our relationship with his home village in Kenya. We bumped Dr. Ngweni a couple times from board meetings, so we wanted to make sure we got him in at the end of this school year. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Ngweni. I think your presentation is up, and we'll dim the lights.
Thank you very much. The Board of Education President, board members, and the Superintendent of Schools. I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for inviting me to come and share with you this report. Initially, I was going to come with students. That's what I normally do. As you know, the exams are going on right now, so many of them will not come, actually. And I told them not to. But I do have Jeremy with me. He's one of the students that went to Kenya, so he's going to be able to say a few words later on about the experience. I think that it's always good that I bring students so that they speak much more candidly and clearly about what it means to them. So let me share this with you. I was given 15 minutes. We'll try to keep to the time. So I just thought, being a teacher, that I should start with a question with all of you. So if you can look at that picture, and you won't get right or wrong, but first, where do you think this picture was taken? And how many animals can you see? Are there any lessons from the photo? I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. Maybe the second question, how many animals can you see? Three. This picture was taken in Kenya, in Masai Mara, where we have also taken our students. But I brought this picture because it's quite interesting. That's a very rare thing that usually doesn't happen all the time. You have an elephant, a lion, and its cub. And the lion had walked for for a long distance, was tired. And the elephant basically carried its cub to help it. Both of those two animals have they are all powerful in their own ways. The elephant is very powerful, the lion is very powerful. But yet, they all needed help. There's some kind of help they brought in there. And I found it very interesting because of the relationship we have created with Kenya from our school too. And I don't want to go further than that. I'm gonna let it leave it to imagination to think of where we can be if that kind of collaboration can take place. So, this picture was taken from our school here recently. Those are our high school. But I also wanted to show you the kind of awareness also we're creating within our school. So when this program started, it was about 2005. When I came to Hopewell, I came 2004, and then 2005, when I was teaching biology students, there was always this question about tell us more about your village. How did you grow up? What was going on there? And as I shared my stories, and we started talking about tropical diseases, particularly malaria, and I had the malaria when I was young, the students were very fascinated what happened. And then they challenged me to do a trip to Kenya. It was just more like a joke, sort of. But they were very serious. So they went back to their parents, and they just told them we're going to go to Kenya. So my first meeting was quite nerve-wracking, because I had parents who could not believe that their students can go to Kenya. But their young people were very determined that they were going to go to Kenya. So they mobilized, and I remember that 2 years later, 2007, we took 15 students and 6 educators, so 21 people. And the idea was to go and raise efforts to prevent malaria, bed nets and all that. And we took we got about $30,000, which we used to get about 5,000 bed nets in the village. When the students were there, they also now saw other things. First of all, they realized that people were very friendly, they can be able to communicate with them, and also something more happened more than just simply a trip to help. And that started a journey that I think you're going to be able to see here that's amazing. One of the things that was very traumatic is the idea that there was no water available. That touched our students a lot. So that's the village where I grew up. It's very beautiful, very hilly, and it's always like that the whole year. Okay, it's always summer. The temperatures, they rarely go beyond 75 degrees, right? So it's really a very beautiful place, but there were challenges with water, challenges in terms of other things, but the resources that were there. Right. So I think I've talked about that before. All right, this is not moving. Okay, so what happened was, so we came back, and some of you may be aware that we came back, and then there was also a foundation that was formed here, a non-profit organization. Parents were involved. It's called Hopewell Alliance. Okay, so we branched out much more. But what's important then, we organized one of the students that you're seeing there. That's Mandy Lee, one of the 2010 participants, went back to the village and did a survey about water, what water was being used for, and what was the needs there. And this was part of his project for for her Georgetown University project. So she came up with some information, and this is what was quite interesting. As you can see from there, and I'm trying to summarize here very quickly. A lot of time is spent collecting water. 40% of the of the water collection was done by women, particularly, but also girls. But almost a very high number of them are women. So, and it took a lot of time to just collect water, walking almost 2-3 miles, getting this water back. And what touched the students most was that when we were there, or whenever we went there, the villagers cooked food very well for us. And the students could not understand where the water came from. There was, everything was well done until they saw how far they went to get this water. And they realized it was very precious commodity for them. But this survey is kind of eye-opening for us here in the United States, the fact that, a lot of time is spent in getting water. So we basically moved forward and said we wanted to do something, working with the villagers to get them clean water. That's why I thought that I should share this with you. So this is the source of water they had. That was for about 10,000 people, right? That's where they will go to get water. And so this is, I'm showing you this before what is coming after, because I think that's why I came here. And this survey, actually Mandy did a very good job in terms of showing on where the water was being used, and there's also instances where just the scarcity of water caused fights between people in the village because they don't have enough of it. So I'm just showing you just some parts of it. You can read the whole study. I can share with you what came out of it. And that shows you what happened. Women will go very, very early in the morning. They will line up and wait for the water, to fill up, and then take them home. So you can imagine how long it took to fill them up, to use it for cooking and other things. Everything that you do with water, that's how the water was being obtained. So this is the most exciting part. So our students and the community mobilized here, and together we formed communities there as well. So it was a joint effort, and the idea was to help fill a borehole so that water becomes available. So I've jumped a lot of steps there, but what you're seeing there is the beginning of the drilling of a 200 meters borehole. That started there, and that's the work that's being done. And that's the pump is being put in, and the last piece there, that's water coming out. So that water you're seeing there is the efforts of Hopewell community, Central High School, and the people in the village. And on March 2nd, that became a reality. And I wanted the Board of Education and the Hopewell community to celebrate this, because this is a transformation that I cannot speak about it. I don't have any words to tell you, but if there is anything that you need to be aware of, this is the work of your students and the community. And I wanted to celebrate it. So at the high school, we had a cake with the teachers because we celebrated it. And the students were extremely happy about all this that has happened, because we have had almost 100 students from Hopewell who have gone here as well. So the final thing I would like to do is to invite you. We would like to, in 2020, because there's a lot of things that have happened, this is just one piece of the things that Hopewell has managed to link this community. So in 2020, the dream is, and I would like to invite the board members who are interested to be part of it, to join us for what will be one of the phenomenal celebration in the village. And we hope to set up a global connection center there that will link Hopewell and that village where I came from. I believe that for me, it is kind of unique, and special in the sense that I was born there, but now this is my home. And the idea is we want Hopewell to permanently have that link with that village. And I'm inviting you to be part of that. So that is what we are hoping to do. I've given you a lot of notice. It's about 2 years from now to prepare for it. I think you will be well received. You will be so happy that if there's anything else that you may want to do in your life, just one thing, this is one thing I'd like to ask you to do. it will be something that you will really be happy about. So at this point, I'm going to invite Jeremy. This is all the stuff we'll be doing to talk about what it means to him. Then I'll come back to this.
All right. Thank you for having us again. And I'm going to apologize now. Seems to be a plague going through the high school that I had last week, so my voice is still recovering. So if I need to turn this way and cough, that's why. So my Kenya experience is just so much information at once. So I knew from the beginning of the year I was going to go to Kenya, and it didn't really hit me until like the end of the year after school. I was like, Kenya's like 2 weeks away. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. But up until that point, everyone was asking, like, are you ready for Kenya? Are you excited? Like, it's going to change your life. It's going to be, like, really cool, nothing you've seen before. And I was like, yes? Like, I don't really know. I never went out of the country before. I never had an experience so far that's been that impactful. So I said yes, but I didn't really understand how it was going to do that. Like I said, I'd never been out of the country, so I didn't really have any exposure to other cultures. So they're like, all right, you're going to be on the plane for 17 hours. I was like, wow, 17 hours. So I'm trying to think of things I've done for 17 straight consecutive hours. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I did it. It was fine. But before we left for the trip, Dr. Ngweni gave us a bunch of articles and videos to watch, not only to show us what it's going to be like when we get there, like environment and things like that, but just like things to like think about while you're there, like broaden your horizons. That's like soaking everything into seeing what it means. I think one of the most impactful one was the power of one story. And I don't know if any of you have seen that, but essentially what the lady said, she was from Africa, and it was saying how if you take one opinion, one story, and only look at that as how you view the entire country, you're not going to get anything out of it. So it's like if someone were to come to America who's from Africa or wherever, never been to America before, and you send them to Beverly Hills, where every house is worth $5 million at least, they're going to think every single person in America has that $5 to like $20 million home, which isn't the case. We have our own socioeconomic problems, things like that. So going to Kenya, everyone kind of has the stereotype of like people live in like mud huts and stuff like that. That's not true. So I'm talking to kids at the schools we go to, and some of them are like, I walk 8 miles to get to school, and I am the student that has to get water from my family afterwards, and like, that's rough. Like, it's not what you want. And then I talked to another student, and he goes, yeah, I like to play Xbox a lot and watch 24 with Jack Bauer. And I was like, oh, I do that. I was like, that's cool. And his name was actually Jeremy, small world. But I think the biggest thing I got out of my Kenya experience is how fundamentally similar everybody is, yet how different we can all be economically, socially, politically. But we all have that human fundamental base, and getting more than just one story is the best thing you can ever do if you have an experience like that where you go outside the country. So blessed to say that I've been a part of this and all the future planning on going back in 2020. If I could tell you one thing, don't even question it, just go. If you question it, you're going to psych yourself out. But yeah, I think just ask as many questions, get as much information as you can. I think that's going to wrap up my speech. But thank you for having me. That was lovely.
How much more time do I have? Minutes?
I think you're okay.
I like to make sure that I stay on time.
Yeah.
So Jeremy actually represents what other students would say. In fact, I hear so many powerful stories like Jeremy's. And one thing that's interesting, since 2007, almost all the students that went are in touch with me. And I think that's something very unusual even for teachers, that you find students in touch with you. Some of them now are married, they have kids, and some are planning actually to go back in 2020. But what's interesting is that they always reference what the opportunity gave them in terms of beyond the classroom program. I also wanted to point out that I'm very proud to be part of Hopewell and to be teaching the district. So I go to conferences, and I presented there before, And when I speak about what is going on and what is going on in Hopewell, a number of people come out and say, is that a high school or a college? Or what is that? What school is that? That's very unique. So I've had many questions often, people asking me about what type of school is this? And I wanted to point this out to you because a lot of times we aren't aware of what we give. We have a very rigorous academic program for sure, and these other experiences we're providing here are very unique, and they help our students to stand out more. I can tell that with certainty because I've experienced it and I see it happening all the time. So I wanted to end up with that quote, and there's another one coming up, that by educating our students, really, we are lending a hand to their success, but also we are preparing leadership for the future. That's the way I look at it. All our students we have in our school here, I always see them as leaders. And I think I said one time, and I've said this often, I believe very strongly, maybe within my lifetime or beyond, that we will have a student from Hopewell at one point leading this country as a president. I believe very strongly. So we have to prepare them. We have to expose them so that they can be the leaders we want them to be by giving that opportunity. The elephant is a very powerful animal. The lion is a very powerful animal, but there is weaknesses. But those weaknesses can balance out, and together, then they make things better. And we've done that with the powerful things in Kenya, the powerful things in Hopewell, and you are, I don't know, you are going to experience so much love of the community that we have built between Hopewell and Nyanjanol, the village where I came from. Jeremy and others wanted to stay there. The students wanted to go back and live there. That's how much it is. And finally, I think there was one quote. I don't know if I cut it out. That one. So the last thing I want, many of you may have watched this movie called Hidden Figures. I don't know if you watched it. It was a very powerful movie. And there's a quote in there where one of the young women, when she was calling people to go to the academy, she was being refused. And then she had to go and be the first one to take a class in that at Virginia, I think it was the Virginia Tech or something like that. And the judge, who was to make determination whether she go back, she posed those questions for her. And I think one of the most powerful message was that if there are many cases or there are some things that you're going to be deciding about, and that's true also about life, but the question is, which one of this is going to be the one that will be remembered? That's the question I always ask myself, even with my students. And I had a professor in university used to say that education is when everything else is left, what remains when everything else is forgotten. It's not about molecules, chemicals, atoms. It is what remains after you forget all those things. And that's where I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Nkwene. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Because we were a packed meeting today, I'm just foregoing my report. We've got plenty on the agenda. Dr. Smith?
Sure, and I will forego my comments other to say that, I think Dr. Ngwene's presentation and the presentations before you demonstrate our efforts to create a well-rounded institution. As Dr. Ngwene said, we pride ourselves with academic rigor, but I think it's the opportunities that we provide our students really set us apart. The Kenya trip, I think every student I've spoken to said their life has profoundly changed from participating in that trip. So I really thank Dr. Ngwene for enriching our high school environment and our community's environment, because if you've attended any one of his programs, it brings out the full community. So I thank that, and obviously we learned about the students making themselves known on a national level. Something we should be very proud of as we wind out the school year. Something else you should just be aware of, tonight's agenda is really a two-part meeting. First is the board reorganization. You are asked to approve the first half of the meeting. On your consent agenda are a number of annual renewals, things like our Title IX coordinator and our playground inspector, things like that, folks that we have to designate because we operate on both a fiscal and a calendar year in the district. So as we end our fiscal year, you are asked to reapprove these positions for beginning July 1. So you'll see that's why we have a consent agenda, appointments and actions, and then you have opportunity for public comment, and then you kind of go back and you see two things. So it's not a misprint that some things are on the agenda twice, like finance and facilities and things like that. So just a clarification.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. So moving on to the consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Is there anything that anybody wants removed from the consent agenda? Discussion? Okay. I'm just doing all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. Okay, opening our first public comment of the evening. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Richard Harmon. That's one of my names. I'm also known as Kamal Kuji Chakalia. But anyway, Richard Harmon is the one who works for Hopewell Valley. Okay, I am a school bus driver, and I drive your preschool children. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and it's a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Love being with my little babies. And I've watched them grow up. Some of them have walked out of here today. Anyway, I'm here because about a year and a half, I work for transportation, which is right over here.
And what municipality are you from?
I'm from Trenton. I live in Trenton.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So I work with transportation. I call us, we're the black sheep of Hopewell Valley. And I do that because we seem to get the bottom of Hopewell Valley's resources. Like, we have a urinal that's been in the bathroom for a year and a half, and they covered it with a plastic bag, and it stinks. And they took the plastic bag off after about a year and a half. It still stinks. And we have a parking lot which is like a minefield. Seems that no one cares about our park. I mean, and we're old people. We're all old mostly, and it's dangerous out there. But I'm here. I was about last January 2017. I went to the superintendent of HR, and I asked him why we're the only group in Hopewell Valley that doesn't get holiday pay. Okay? And I've yet to have an answer, so I'm here tonight to ask you, why is it we don't get holiday pay? I mean, we work just as hard as anyone else, and you know, when Christmas or New Year's or Easter comes along, it's almost universal that people get paid for holidays. It's universal in this district. Everyone else gets it. So I can't understand why you would treat us like that. Unless you think of us as being the black sheep too. I don't know. But anyway, that's my concern. And I would really like to have an answer as to why we do not get holiday pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, my name is Neil McGrath. I live at 102 Shrewsbury Court in Pennington, and I am here to comment on the outrageous proposal that Mr. Smith plans to put forward to this board to begin random substance testing in the high school next year. I oppose this for so many reasons that I couldn't possibly list them all. First of all, it is an outrageous transgression against everyone's Fourth Amendment rights, against unreasonable search and seizure of their person or property without just cause. Now, Mr. Smith has quoted Hunterton Central versus Joy, a few other cases. Okay, maybe you can do it, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. There are a lot of things people can do. That doesn't mean they should. But the bottom line really is that not only do I believe it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, many national institutions have spoken out against it, including the National Education Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychology. All of them have come out against it. So, my question is, you have all of these people in opposition. Why in God's name would we consider it? But the most important consideration here is, this is the Board of Education, and I think that third word is most important. Your job is to educate our children, not to police them. There's a police force for that, and most certainly not to parent them. I am my child's parent. If I wish my child to be subjected to a drug test, I will do it. Mr. Smith said, parents came to him and said, help us. Well, my response would be, why don't you tell those parents to test their kids themselves? Why are we spending school money on this? And what example are we setting for our children that that the school can routinely violate their civil liberties because of some societal problem? And again, in a manner that is very humiliating. I asked my daughter how she would feel if she were yanked from her class, dragged to the nurse's office, and subjected to this. And she said it would be humiliating. And I said to her, okay, if that happens, there are 3 words that you are to say. Call my father. And that's it. She's not to cooperate with anything else. So my suggestion to all of you is that if parents want to allow their children to be tested for substances, let them waive that right. But no one has the right to take that away from me as my child's guardian. She is a minor. I'm the one who makes those decisions. So I hope that is clear. Oh, I see, I'm being held to the 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
I would like to present as
Mr. Harmon,
well. Mr. Harmon?
do you want to stay for a response?
Oh, you want to give me one?
Yes.
Do you want to do his first?
No.
No. When we're finished. When we're finished with public comment. We just didn't want him to leave.
For the record, I intend to stay for a response too.
Okay. I'm Marty Davis, and I'm over on Brandon Road West, and my daughter's in the high school. I have the same concerns as Neil McGrath has with this drug testing policy, this potential policy. I think this isn't being well thought out. I think that it's disgraceful that we suddenly are going to be imposing random testing. I don't see the value of that. I think personally you guys should be, doing what you've been doing, which has been great, and we should be known for educating our kids, not spending our money on drug testing. If I want to do drug testing, I did the research. Here, I did the research to find out, geez, if I do want to test my kid, because who's the first person who should be doing that? The family. I can go to CVS and pick up for, $14 test for marijuana. For $22.50, I can test for 4 other substances. My concern is, just like Neil said, I don't want my kid or any of her friends being pulled out of class to go down and take tests that I think are truly invasive. I think it's one thing, we have the power at the school. Yes, if you suspect somebody, clean their locker out, check their book bags. But when you start asking them to take bodily fluids, I think we would be crossing the line. I don't want our school system to be known for crossing that line. That's a barrier where, you know, if you think there's a child who has a drug issue, go to that parent, talk to that parent and say, hey, we noticed how your child's behaving in class or outside of class, or we caught them outside or inside the property doing drugs. Address that single issue. Do not subject our whole student body as if they're all criminals, potentially criminals, and think that's a deterrent to them. I think kids that are doing drugs, and there's always going to be some set of kids doing things that they shouldn't be doing, they're going to probably be the ones thinking they'll never be caught, and this will not be a deterrent to them. The idea that this exists, this potential of drug testing, I think it's a foolish expenditure of our money. I don't want my tax dollars going for this. I definitely think that our money should be continuing to go to support our school buildings, our parking lots for the bus drivers. I think that's horrifying. I've seen those lots. I really do. I think that's a very big point. I think that there's so many other ways we could be using that money than putting it towards drug testing. I don't think that furthers the educational value of our of all of our students here. I think it sends a message to them that, do we believe they're all potentially doing drugs? I just think that's wrong. If there's an issue, I think it should be a one-on-one with the parent, the student, and do it in a way that delivers results. Drug testing is not gonna, random testing is not gonna deliver results. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Anyone else want to come up for public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Dr. Smith, would you like to respond to Mr. Harmon regarding the conditions here for transportation and their holiday pay, and Mr. McGrath and Ms. Davis for their opposition to the drug testing policy?
Sure, I can start with the facility out back. The first thing is, we'll be in touch with Mr. Quinn, our Director of Facilities, tomorrow regarding the restroom, find out what the story is on that. Two is that we are well aware of the parking lot. It's something that we've discussed. Unfortunately, budgetary issues have prevented us from moving forward with the work in that area, but it's on our radar, it's on our long-term list, and something that we're aware of. The final thing is bus drivers are classified as hourly employees, so hourly employees don't get paid for time off, but they do get paid double time or on holidays. And we do have a lot of trips that go out on holidays, so we try to compensate them by paying those who do work. They get double time on those holidays, and also Sundays. Correct, Mr. Suzo? So that's that. They're compensated as hourly employees, and no other hour employee that we have in the district gets paid for holidays. And actually, just so you know, teachers technically aren't paid for holidays. They're on a contract for 182 instructional days. So how that falls, we have built-in breaks, but they don't get paid specifically for those holidays. Regarding the random drug testing, the board is aware of this. They've had discussions on it. As I've said countless times, moving forward, this was a big decision. I would argue that we didn't take this lightly. It was after a lot of discussion, and this board discussed it publicly twice. I went out and had 2 town hall meetings. Both were Facebook Live events, and we have other districts that have done it in neighboring districts, and they've seen a difference. I have not been sugarcoating this issue since the beginning. We do have a problem at our high school, plain and simple. We have things that are at students' disposal with, we have students who have free time, students have money that they are able to spend without anybody checking on them. and they have access. We are minutes away from one of the epicenters of drug trafficking in the Northeast, certainly. So we know that drugs are in our area. We've spoken to our police regarding this. And you, Mr. McGrath, from the beginning, your point is well taken about where our role is, and I understand that. I think one of the struggles we have in a school district is that we do have students come to us with issues. And whether you agree that it is our role or not to address those issues is something that we have taken on as a school district in trying to support our students. Ultimately, this is seen as a deterrent, and that's what we hear from other folks, that this gives students an out. And we know that there are students, and we know that there's parties in our area. Students are placed in uncomfortable positions, and we're hoping that this provides an out. One thing that we've committed to the board regarding the APA, and if you look at the very end of the APA report, is, for districts that do this, you need to have specific guidelines. You need to track the data. And we've committed to that. We've committed to the Board of Education. We will come back this time next year with information regarding how many students were tested, the results of those tests, and the ultimate costs of all those tests. What we're seeing now in terms of the costs is, probably we have a $87 million budget, Mr. Calavita. We're looking at probably $5,000 to implement this testing at our high school. We do this not out of punishment. We do this out of caring for our students, and we are trying to really make a difference in their lives and giving them a reason to say no. Understood.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Okay. Moving on to any items of old business. Yeah, introduce something. Finance and Facilities, Mr. DiDonato.
So everything's on consent for tonight. We met and just had an update of some of the things that are going on in the referendum. Everything's charging forward, and hopefully when the school year ends, we'll double up and get some of the projects that have fallen slightly behind. We had some service agreement renewals, vehicle dispositions, and some a cool notice of benefits that came in about 5% below what our projections were initially. So this is a big win, I think, for everyone. So a lot of that, those funds will go toward the budget for next year. And outside of that, that's it.
Thank you.
Those of you who are following along, rain tonight is good. It'll clear out, so we'll be good on Wednesday.
From your lips.
Sorry.
Personnel, Ms. Pelora. No worries.
So in tonight's personnel meeting, we reviewed the current openings for the 2018-2019 school year. We really are in good shape with many recommendations.
Susan, do you have anything to be moved?
Oh, I move the consent agenda.
No.
No, it's somewhat.
Your personnel items.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pelora.
Someday I will understand this. Okay, so again, we reviewed the current openings for the 2018-2019 school year. We have a lot of good recommendations for approval on the agenda to fill positions in good shape for 2018-2019. We continue to look at the teacher attendance trends comparing this year to last. And we discussed the 2018-2019 per diem rates, which will be on the July agenda.
Thanks.
Thank you. Did you get a second? Okay. Okay, perfect. So a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Markulek.
Yes.
Ms. Pilara.
Yes.
Mr. Swicky.
Yes.
Ms. Tracy.
Yes.
Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
And Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Ed program. Ms. Long.
We have everything on consent tonight, and this is an overview this morning. Vicki Alexis, I say it wrong, but
I thought you did a good job.
she came in and discussed second chance learning with us, which is piloting next year throughout all the departments, 6 through 12, which basically are retakes and redos on assignments, tests, projects. And the reasons why they want to do this is that it can reduce anxiety in their students and it helps them retain the information longer. And by doing it, when you see what you've done wrong, it does help you learn what is right and how to do it right. They've had a committee work on this all year and came up with the criteria that every department must allow at least one chance to do a redo, and that every department has a formatted contract with the policies and procedures, which we actually saw this morning for the department. This is the pilot year. They're going to look at the data and see how it goes and tweak it as necessary for next year. And Tony Sousa was with us this morning, just giving us an update on the blended learning, the overview of the work that was done this year and what they are going to be working on next year. And this is kind of a cool idea for professional development for teachers doing some individual professional development. They will be receiving badges. I don't know, I guess you haven't decided yet if they're online badges or like Girl Scout badges that you can put around. So to kind of encourage them to do these professional technology professional development. So that was it.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Policy, Mr. Sawicki.
I think community relations is next.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There was nothing on there. Go on.
So on community relations, you will be asked to approve the calendar, which is listed under new business. The community relations team met, and we made the recommendation that the calendar be updated to change how these snow days are currently set up. We'll discuss more about that when we get to new business, but when we had done the e-learning days in the past, they kind of came up as a new item this year, and they kind of came up as a item of necessity because the number of snow days exceeded the number of days on our calendar. And we think it's a really helpful program. As Jen mentioned, Tony came and talked about blended learning. The board has really prioritized blended learning, and rather than having the e-learning as an afterthought, is something that we do because we happen to go over on snow days. We're talking about moving those e-learning days to the first snow days rather than to the end when you happen to go over on your snow days. So we will ask you to approve that when we get to new business, but that was one of the items that we recommended from our communications committee. The other item that we recommended, which we don't need board approval on, is that we work to make sure that the overall district calendar that is kept on the website, make sure that it syncs up with what's happening at all the individual schools. Because at the beginning of the year, we're really good about getting everything on the calendar, but as things change, we just need to make sure that everything stays in sync. So those were the two items from community relations. The first you'll be asked to approve under new business, and the second was just about keeping the calendars updated. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Keeping all the calendars like in sync, 'cause I know that's like unwieldy beast. Once the school
Take your
gets-
mic a little closer to you.
But I'm wondering, sort of, is there somebody who's like ultimately in charge of the calendar, and then sort of a retraining of like all the individual calendars to say, okay, here's the process when you have a change, this is what you have to do, or?
Would you like to answer?
Sure. So all heck broke loose when we had the snow days. So this is really where we got into a pickle, in that the trips got bumped back and the clap outs and things like that. So the principals have all been instructed, but ultimately the check and balance will be my office in going through all the calendars, making sure that as soon as we lose that one snow day, the end of the year is caught up on the district calendar, that we've changed that, because I think think it was Jenny who brought it up that we didn't adjust the end of the year either. And I think it's typically the parents of graduating seniors who are worried about, you know, grandparents coming in and things like that, who are the most worried. So that's our checks and balances principals are made aware. Their secretaries ultimately are the ones that typically keep the calendar, making sure that as soon as, and just for me, you know, I send out when we have a snow day, and I usually put a blurb at the end. I think just to put a tickler for everybody is please check your building calendars for updates and changes to end of the year activities. I'm going to put that in my little snippet that I send out after the snow video. Maybe we'll make that part of the snow video. Check your calendar.
Sounds good. Okay. Policy governance.
Okay. Can I get a motion to move policies up for first reading?
So moved.
Second. Great. Okay, so what we have up for first reading tonight is, let's see, policy 8462 and regulation 8462. These both cover reporting of potentially missing or abused children. And we also have policy 5460, high school graduation. So these came from our policy service. They tend to be relatively small changes, mainly related to state regulations. I will say, though, that our policy committee did review and make some minor changes to the reporting policies, just to make sure that we had all of our potential options listed for reporting of missing or abused children to ensure anonymity if our staff chose to do so. So we're recommending these three.
Thank you.
I wanted to comment just on the third one. On graduation requirements, I would agree with you that we pass it as written. But just so you know what's coming down the pike, one of the changes in this policy is discussing all of the new requirements that kids have to pass park. And the current administration right now is looking at whether, number one, if they even want to keep park, but if they do, what stakes should be associated with the testing. Is the testing, you know, what is the purpose of the testing, and is it an appropriate use to be used as a high school graduation requirement? And I think that they are leaning toward changing that, but at this point, this is correct how it is.
Any other discussion? Voice vote, please.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Okay.
Motion carries. Oh,
Great. And if I could get a motion to move the policies up for second reading.
So moved.
Second. Great. Okay. So we have 5 up for second reading, R5200 and P5200 on attendance, P2411 and R2411 for guidance counseling, and P9210 for parent organizations. These are unchanged from prior first reading. If you'll allow me, I will compliment our community, because we did get a question today from one of the members of our community with regard to policy 5200 in regard to obtaining course credit. So I reviewed it with Dr. Smith. The key question relates to how absences are counted in terms of obtaining course credit. The key thing is, in that policy, it basically states may as opposed to shall. So it basically provides for a mechanism for teachers and administrators to review whether or not there should be any withholding of credit. There are some specific cases where those days of absence shall not be accounted. You don't have to worry about it, and it relates to religious holidays and such. So I think based upon that, I'm still believe it to be acceptable, and I recommend moving forward.
because it has may rather than shall.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well stated. Okay, we need do we need a voice vote for this?
Roll call.
Roll call, okay. Ready?
Ms. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Markulek?
Yes.
Ms. Polaro?
Yes.
Mr. Swicky?
Yes.
Ms. Tracy?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato?
Yes.
And Ms. Murray?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Could I make one more comment before we leave policy?
please do.
Just to clarify, based upon the public question earlier, at our last meeting in May, we did go ahead and approve, the board did approve a policy and regulation related to random drug testing. So those are not up for review or adoption. They have been adopted by the board.
Thank you for the clarification.
And I'll mention, since we have a member of the press, that I think she's pretty aware that we passed the random drug policy because she did write an article on it. So that's been passed and done.
And if I could just, since we, say two things. One is I appreciate the board's support on moving that because it's not an easy decision to make, and we had unanimous approval moving forward with that. Two is I'd like to give a shout out to our policy committee for really addressing policies. We had a large backlog of policies, and Adam has really been, I think, studious in not only making sure we are on task, but actually reading them and changing as necessary.
Don't sound so surprised.
Well, good, because
He actually reads them.
well, policies are daunting. It can be. I mean, it's a lot of legal jargon or school jargon, and it there's a lot. Nope.
Did somebody get a cane? Is that
Apparently, I'm done talking.
Well, I personally believe that if we don't read them well when they come to us, somebody will read them well to us at some later point.
That's an excellent point.
Like the
Absolutely.
messages we've
Absolutely.
gotten today. Okay, we're on to board calendars. I can't believe. May I have a motion and a second, please, to approve the calendars? Thank you. Second, anyone?
Second.
Thank you. Jen. I know.
The calendars are,
So where it says 5 p.m. commencement, that really supposed to say 6
Five.
means you arrive in the.
Yes, yes.
That's us.
I
Yeah.
thought it said 5:30.
It is 5:30, but
I think you said
sometimes we don't get there on time. So I figure if we bump it up, if we say 5, everybody will be there at 5:30. We're trying, yes,
Okay.
we're trying to make sure you're there.
Okay.
We have to sit around in the hot room for the rest of the time.
That's it.
Any additions or?
Sex, Susan wants sex.
It's wide open.
Nothing in July?
Same thing, finance and personnel. Finance the same, Pete? 6 and 6:30? Good. Up to you guys.
We go 6:30 and 7.
Why don't you make it 6:30 and 7 for the 2 meetings?
All right.
Yeah.
We're at 6:30, you're at 7.
Doesn't matter
No,
which
wait,
one.
wait, what did you say?
No, I was just pushing everything back, so we'll go at 6:30, you guys go at 7.
We're still in denial.
7:30.
7:30.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just
That
leave
program?
Leave it on the calendar this time.
Are you looking for something?
Take it on, take it off.
Do you want me to have a problem?
Lucky she texted me saying she was late. I'm like, late for what?
She
We
reminded us
really
of
do have a meeting? It was removed from the calendar.
It was.
It was.
I don't know when that happened.
By the time I pulled out of the driveway, I pulled back in the driveway, so I guess I don't have a meeting.
I don't know when it
Well, I
got
don't know
dropped,
when
I
it
don't know when it came off either.
Because I think I saw it this morning.
It was there
The
this
only thing I
morning.
can think of is Gino has been working, she's on her way to Louisiana
Yeah,
by
yeah.
car. I think she was working in her car.
While she was
She might
driving.
have- She might have missed it. Gina was playing with the calendar.
Dropped off the calendars at some
Oh,
point.
did it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Because he's asking me, I'm like, it was on there.
Because she was emailing me today, and I was like, how are you? And she's like, I'm driving 25 hours to Louisiana. So, anyway.
Let's post.
Anything else on there?
Not now.
Not now. We seem to have dropped off the
Looks blank.
calendars again.
There you go. Right. We do policy maybe on the 9th. We can have time. We good. What time's
Phone call.
best? Phone call? Yep. 8:15.
And I reserve the right to schedule a communications meeting later.
Good with that.
Can we make it 8:30?
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's good. And we actually have policies. Adam's, man. Adam already has the July policies ready in the hopper.
Although one needs some work.
Yeah, one is-
It actually relates to graduation
Yeah,
requirements
correct.
and assessments, like you were just saying. Somebody didn't update. Pass. NJ asked.
Okay, all those,
There still is though, isn't the science part still on?
Yeah, but this was math and
okay, all those in favor of the calendars as changed?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Okay. New business. The first thing we have on new business is to just kind of note that we completed our board self-evaluation, and we will later on in the year have a conversation regarding the outcome and discussion, but we just wanted to put you on notice that everybody's completed it and it's ready to go.
Have you received the consolidated reports?
Yes.
So you'll be handing those out when?
I figured we'd get past tonight and then I'll send them out to you.
Okay.
Had to get through this Dr. Smith's evaluation.
I'm holding everything up.
Yes, you're.
I got things to say.
It's the end of the year. Okay. And also under new business is the proposed HVRSD school calendar.
And I'd like to move them.
Thank you. Any discussion, any notation?
Just for clarification, this is calendar. It says calendars. This is just for next year.
Yep.
But then next year, we will work on the next
3
years.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a pilot. And if the board has done in the past, and I would suggest doing it again, you typically, just to get it out, approve it twice. So do it again in July, and then we'll kick it out to the whole community in September.
But communications wanted to make sure that notification was received now for 2 reasons. One, you don't want July and August to be when you approve it, because then it looks like you're kind of sneaking it in. You want to make sure that we do our approvals while the school year is still underway, so everyone is aware of it. Some people do try to build their vacation schedule around our calendar, so we want to be able to give as much notice as possible. The good news is this actually makes it easier for people to book their calendars, because there's less movement of days, at least initially. If we only have a couple days, it's not going to actually affect any of the end of year or graduation days.
Okay. All those in favor? Oh,
Aye.
go ahead.
It was in the green notes too.
Yeah.
I handed out all of this.
Survey has been overwhelmingly positive. I think the elementary, we have better work to do, specifically on those assignments. I think for this, knowing that they're planned, we'll be able to plan better. And again, I have to say, you know, I really appreciate the board working with me and us. We did do this quickly. With the last one, I think people were generally appreciative of what we did, but I really think that we can do it even better by having some time, knowing that we're going to September and we're moving forward with it.
We discussed that specifically ad nauseum in the communications committee, and we did discuss how important it is to actually make sure that there was planning done in advance, because some of the other questions are, when we're doing the e-learning, what they're hoping to do, and I'll say hope, we'll see how this shakes out, is that the e-learning will actually take place on the snow day. So there, you know, it's kind of a crapshoot, because if we happen to lose power on a snow day, and we're talking about doing stuff on your Chromebook for your e-learning, that could be an issue. But we actually talked about planning for that, and when Dr. Smith announces the night before that there's going to be a snow day, he will also announce
Hopefully
that
the night before.
that you should charge up your Chromebook, so if you do lose power, you actually might be able to still be able to use your Chromebooks to get some stuff done. Obviously, like they did with the e-learning over the spring break, they're going to give you extended time. They're not going to say it has to be to the next day. But the goal is to actually use the snow days as e-learning days. So that's kind of the hopes. And if things do work out, one of the other hopes that they had for the elementary schools is actually maybe to even go a step beyond, where you could have, what do you call it, when the principal is working with the kids online. Remember, we're talking about like reading stories.
Reading stories,
like
yeah,
them.
Kurt, yep.
So basically, not just working on your Chromebook, but actually having some interaction with the principal or your teacher, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's a tough balance though, because you know, schools get funny when there's even the threat of snow. So you know, I typically start getting calls 2 or 3 days ahead of time when the storm is planned. So I am worried on the elementary school if people are going to start making copies and be like, we might have a snow day in 3 days, so I'm giving you all your work now. So I mean, we're going to balance it out. I think it'll be. I think we learned a lot first time through, and I think that this time will give us an opportunity. But elementary is where it is more difficult because, for whatever reason, I know we had some parents were concerned about screen time. Also, getting stuff to the kids. So we're gonna.
Yeah, I think middle school and high school is great.
Yeah. It was nice.
The only thing I wanted to say was
Yep.
all about this was
Understood.
keep an eye on that.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you,
And it
Susan.
won't be, the other thing that we heard, it won't be the entire day, so we will allot time for physical activity. The sledding, we'll count that as the fit ed
I.e.,
and wellness.
kids get
component.
out and shovel the driveway.
Yeah, there
But-
you go. Oh, that's a good e-learning.
Actually,
That's physical education.
part of what we said too is when people are saying that here's the problem, you can't really get out. We said, well, you should be able to do it in the morning before you could get out anyway, because someone else has to plow the driveway or get it shoveled. So you should be able to get your e-learning done then, and then you can go out and sled and all the other fun stuff. So we actually thought about it, have it timed and everything.
I knew you'd like that one.
I'm going to have a lot of disclaimers at the end of the snow videos now. Update your calendar, charge your Chromebook, make sure you have copies made. Yeah.
You need tickler at the bottom.
Crawler.
And now we need a vote. Just a voice vote. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Public comment is now open. Any members of the public would like to speak? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. I'd now like to have a motion for us to go into executive session.
So moved.
We will be discussing harassment, intimidation, and bullying matters, special education litigation, and the superintendent's evaluation. What's that? Action may be taken after the executive session. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Thank you so much, public, for being here.